This world is not what you think it is. This world is not what you think it is.
Fear is one of the most powerful human emotions. While highly useful in situations where threat of immediate harm exists, it is the most debilitating and dangerous of emotions when present unnecessarily. In this video, we will examine how fear can be used as a tool to manipulate others, and how those in positions of power, past and present, have effectively used fear to control certain aspects of society. Humans, especially since the Industrial Revolution, have become increasingly protected from the dangers that our ancestors faced in relation to the natural world. But as mankind's fear of nature and the elements has fallen, in its place many other fears have come to fill the void. Some of these fears have arisen in response to real threats, but many have been in response to things imagined, as the Stoic philosopher Seneca pointed out. There are more things likely to frighten us than there are to crush us. We suffer more often in imagination than in reality. While some of these imagined fears are of one's own making, many are the consequence of narratives created by those in positions of power. Individuals looking to take advantage of and manipulate others have long realized the power of fear. When one is gripped by fear of a threat, real or imagined, their rational and higher cognitive capacities shut down, making them easily manipulated by anyone that promises safety from the threat. No passion so effectually robs the mind of all its powers of acting and reasoning as fear, wrote the 18th century philosopher Edmund Burke. Ruling classes for thousands of years have understood the power of intentionally invoking fear in their subjects as a means of social control. Henry Frankfort, in his book The Intellectual Adventures of Ancient Man, noted that between 1800 and 1600 BC, a fear psychosis spread through ancient Egypt, precipitated by the invasion of foreign rebels hungry for power and conquest. Initially, this fear psychosis was justified by a real threat. Yet even when these foreigners were successfully driven far away from Egypt, the ruling powers sought to artificially maintain fear among the population, realizing that a fearful population is easier to control than a fearless one, as Frankfort explained. The common desire for security need not have survived after the Egyptian Empire extended the military frontier of Egypt well into Asia and thus removed the peril from the immediate frontier. However, it was a restless age, and there were perils on the distant horizon which could be invoked to hold the community together, since unity was to the advantage of certain central powers. A fear psychosis once engendered remained present, and there were forces in Egypt which kept alive this fear psychosis in order to maintain the unified purpose of Egypt. The artificial construction and maintenance of fear in a population by a ruling class has remained pervasive from the time of ancient Egypt up until the modern day. Oppressive governments often maintain their grip on a nation by continually invoking fear, and then proceeding to claim that only they, the ruling powers, have the means and ability to protect the population from such a threat. The whole aim of practical politics, wrote H.L. Mencken, is to keep the populace alarmed and hence clamorous to be led to safety by menacing it with an endless series of hobgoblins, most of them imaginary. John Adams, one of the founding fathers of America, echoed this sentiment, writing, "Fear is the foundation of most governments." While there are numerous tactics and strategies that have developed over the centuries to effectively exploit the public through fear, two of the more powerful and efficient are the use of false flags and the implementation of propaganda via repetition. A false flag can be defined as a covert operation, designed to deceive in such a way that the operations appear as though they are being carried out by entities, groups, or nations other than those who actually planned and executed them. In his book Feardom, Connor Boyack provides a nice explanation on the effectiveness of false flag attacks for those looking to institute social control. Physical attacks lead to a corresponding increase of trust in political leaders and submission to them. This effect is likely the same whether the attack be a surprise, known to political leaders yet allowed to happen, or directly orchestrated by these same leaders who stand to benefit from the increased trust and submission. False flag operations are used because people generally do not have access to the details, so they are prone to rely upon what they're told and thus are easily deceived. People will, for the most part, believe what they are told in times of crisis, and so government officials, whether their motives are good or evil, capitalize on or completely fabricate the crises. Repetition is also a well-known and prevalent propaganda technique used to solidify falsehoods and perpetuate fear in the public consciousness. By repeating specific phrases and warnings, and displaying particular symbols and images over and over through various mediums, those in power are able to paralyze entire populations with a fear psychosis. The Nazi propaganda minister Joseph Goebbels was well aware of the power of repetition in cloaking falsehoods in a garb of truth, stating, "It would not be impossible to prove with sufficient repetition and a psychological understanding of the people concerned that a square is in fact a circle. They are mere words, and words can be molded until they clothe ideas in disguise." George Orwell, in a related manner, viewed political language as largely a form of propaganda designed to deceive people, as he wrote, "Political language is designed to make lies sound truthful and murder respectable, and to give an appearance of solidity to pure wind." The technological advances of the last century have given those in power the ability to propagate their narratives and engage in fear-mongering to an extent never before seen in history. However, despite the unnerving situation we find ourselves in, there is an antidote to the power of propaganda and fear-mongering, that being knowledge. Plato rightly stated that ignorance is the root of misfortune. And as long as we remain ignorant of the fact that all too often, those who claim to protect us from fear are actually manipulating our fears for their own benefit, then we will be contributing to the misfortune of the world through our ignorant compliance. The philosopher Voltaire stated that those who can make you believe absurdities can make you commit atrocities. To avoid being an individual who can be convinced of absurdities, one must become an active truth seeker, instead of the all-too-common passive propaganda receiver. An important step in becoming an active truth seeker is the realization that when evaluating the claims of those in power, skepticism is warranted and even necessary. Very often those who rule do not have the best interests of the public at heart, for as Alexander Solzhenitsyn put it, "Political genius lies in extracting success even from the people's ruin." The reality is that most of us are not in a position to single-handedly change the world, but we can at least try to rid ourselves of the unnecessary fears which are the fuel for so much hate and destruction in the world. In fact, taking responsibility for one's actions and the beliefs that motivate such actions may be the most important thing one can do when faced with the prospect of an oppressive government. For as Stanley Milgram noted, the disappearance of a sense of responsibility is the most far-reaching consequence of submission to authority, and furthermore, might there be truth to the comment by F.A. Harper that the man who knows what freedom means will find a way to be free. At this point, some may be thinking that while the use of fear by those in power certainly contributed to horrible situations in the past, most notably in the totalitarian states of Russia, Germany, and China in the 20th century, Western nations of the present are far from approaching a situation so dire. Hopefully this is true, but it is important to realize that those who have lived through the rise of oppressive governments have seldom realized the perilous situation they were in until it was too late. We will conclude this lecture with a fascinating but ominous passage from the book They Thought They Were Free, which is based on interviews with normal Germans who lived during the Nazi regime. The following quote comes from one of the Germans interviewed, where he discusses why he thought that more ordinary Germans didn't take a stand against the rise of the Nazi government. "One doesn't see exactly where or how to move, believe me, this is true. Each act, each occasion is worse than the last, but only a little worse. You wait for one great shocking occasion, thinking that others, when such a shock comes, will join with you in resisting somehow. But the one great shocking occasion when tens or hundreds or thousands will join with you never comes. That's the difficulty. If the last and worst act of the whole regime had come immediately after the first and smallest, thousands, yes millions, would have been sufficiently shocked. But of course this isn't the way it happens. In between comes all the hundreds of little steps, some of them imperceptible, each of them preparing you not to be shocked by the next. And one day too late your principles, if you were ever sensible of them, all rush in upon you. The burden of self-deception has grown too heavy, and some minor incident collapses it all at once, and you see that everything has changed. Now you live in a world of hate and fear, and the people who hate and fear do not even know it themselves. When everyone is transformed, no one is transformed.
Starting to make me nervous.
And now,
the very latest in the coronavirus crisis, some truly staggering numbers.
Numbers really are staggering.
And now,
more than 50,000 new cases in the U.S. in a single day, the most yet. And worldwide, there have been 6 million new cases in just the past month.
And now,
California's governor here taking drastic measures, saying he's coordinating state agencies, including the California Highway Patrol, to strip businesses of their license and counties of their state funding if they are non-compliant.
And now,
this morning, that alarming new record.
Record jumps in coronavirus infections.
An alarming new record in just one day.
Seen record jumps in daily infections. And now,
this region is headed into a catastrophic situation.
Starting to make me nervous.
Bottom line is the spread of this virus continues at a rate that is particularly concerning.
New coronavirus infections explode. And now,
a new study out today that shows there's a new mutation of the novel coronavirus that makes the virus more infectious, although just as deadly. New mutation.
And now,
patients seem to be way more critical than the first wave.
The news we have gotten from around the country gets worse and worse all the time.
Shocking numbers, Janet. Thank you.
And now,
John, we're so hung up on 6 feet, 6 feet, 6 feet, and now I just heard you say the particles can go 30 feet. Does that mean if somebody's 30 feet away from me that I can get it from 30 feet out now?
Potentially. I
mean, new mutation.
30 feet.
And now, a cluster of at least 8 cases are linked to a house party, mainly young adults in their 20s. Some are facing $2,000 fines. New York's mayor now slamming the brakes on indoor dining. And now, Cubs coach Tommy Hotovy getting emotional.
It's still kind of, raw in the fact that we just got through it.
And now,
this surge cannot just be attributed to more testing. Take a listen.
There is no question that the more testing you get, the more you will uncover. But we do believe this is a real increase in cases because the percent positivities are going up. So this is real increases in cases. So this is real. This is real.
I guess it's notable that somebody telling the truth about this virus is newsworthy, but we did want to point that out. Truth about this virus.
Here's the problem. We are testing people for general coronavirus, but we are not testing for any specific strain, such as COVID-19. There are no reliable tests for any specific COVID-19 virus. There are no reliable agencies or media outlets for reporting numbers of actual COVID-19 virus cases. This needs to be addressed first and foremost. Every action and reaction to COVID-19 is based on totally flawed data.
Record jumps in coronavirus infections.
Coordinating state agencies, including the California Highway Patrol, to strip businesses of their license and counties of their state funding if they are non-compliant.
Every action and reaction to COVID-19 is based on totally flawed data.
Seen record jumps in daily infections.
That is why you're hearing that most people with COVID-19 are showing nothing more than cold or flu-like symptoms. That's because most coronavirus strains are nothing more than cold or flu-like symptoms.
Numbers really are staggering.
Every summer, I try to do a little extra reading. Here's a few books I've read recently that you might enjoy. How to Lie with Statistics by Daryl Huff. Being able to understand what you're looking at and being willing to say, hey, where did that come from? Is that accurate? It's a quick read. It's got a lot of good examples in it. It's a trip to the past, even though the basic points it makes are still as valid today.
I just want to be clear in terms of the definition of people dying of COVID. So the case definition is very simplistic. It means at the time of death, it was a COVID positive diagnosis. So that means that if you were in hospice and had already been given, a few weeks to live, and then you also were found to have COVID, that would be counted as a COVID death. It means that technically, even if you died of a clear alternate cause, but you had COVID at the same time, it's still listed as a COVID death. So everyone who's listed as a COVID death doesn't mean that that was the cause of the death, but they had COVID at the time of death. I hope that's helpful.
How to Lie with Statistics by Daryl Huff.
That alarming new record.
And now,
unfortunately, I don't believe that they're taking this as seriously as they need to, especially because in Tuscaloosa, and probably like a lot of places in Alabama, the spread has been asymptomatic.
The New England Journal of Medicine, and it's the second paragraph here, and it says, "We know that wearing a mask outside healthcare facilities offers little, if any, protection from infection. Public health authorities define a significant exposure to COVID-19 as a face-to-face contact within 6 feet with a patient with symptomatic COVID-19 that is sustained for at least a few minutes, some say up to 10 minutes or even 30 minutes. The chance of catching COVID from a passing interaction in public space is therefore minimal. In many cases, the desire for widespread masking is a reflexive reaction to anxiety over the pandemic." And of course, that's all we've been seeing and hearing from the media, for example, who has been spreading fear about this.
Asymptomatic.
But let me get back to this issue of contagion because it's really important. So in 1918, right around the time of the Spanish flu, or right after the Spanish flu, rather, the U.S. Preventive Health Service wanted to understand how this pandemic spread, because they want to be able to protect the public. So I'm going to assume that they had beneficent intentions. So this, like I said, this study was. These studies I'm about to describe were conducted by the United States Public Health Service. So this was not some independent scientist. Okay, this is the government-sponsored research. So what they did is they had 100 healthy subjects, and then they had a number of people who were sick with the flu. And so the first experiment they did is they basically took snot out of their nose. They took the material that they coughed up, and they mixed it up in a solution, okay? And then they put that solution in the 100 healthy volunteers, and they put it in their nose, they put it in their throat, and they even put it in their eyeballs. So all the proposed mechanisms of transmission they wanted to test, and they wanted to get these healthy people sick. So what happened? None of them got sick, not one person. So they did a subsequent experiment to try and push it further. Okay, so they once again collected these materials from the sick people, and this time they injected it into the volunteers. Okay, once again, no one got sick. So I think they conducted even a third experiment where they wanted to simulate more of a natural transmission from person to person. So in this case, they had the sick person and the healthy subject sit in very close proximity for a period of 5 minutes and talk to each other. And then they had them like put their mouths really close, but not touching. They didn't want them to be making out or anything. But then they had the healthy person breathe out as hard they could, and the sick person breathe in as hard as they could, and basically breathed out the sick air into the healthy person who sucked it in. So after this final experiment, once again, none of the healthy subjects contracted the influenza.
Unfortunately, the spread has been asymptomatic.
30 feet.
Dundas, human rights attorney, we need to ensure the cure is not worse than the disease. Nearly 500 people were recently exposed to a COVID-positive asymptomatic carrier. 0 got sick. Asymptomatic carriers of COVID do not spread disease. That was a study on infectivity of asymptomatic SARS-CoV-2 carriers, May 13th, 2020. The CDC a couple weeks ago did a study where they looked at every single other study in the entire world on face mask wearing. And this is what they found. The CDC found, quote, no reduction in viral transmission with the use of face masks. That was non-pharmaceutical measures in non-healthcare settings, May 2020. There is absolutely 0 point in putting face masks on healthy or asymptomatic carriers. They do not work to stop the virus, and what they do is cut the oxygen hypoxically low. I want to note that within 72 hours of the mandatory mask order going into effect 9 days ago, we had not one but 2 people rendered unconscious in Orange County and 2 of your districts requiring Code 3 lights and sirens medical intervention. Let me explain to you what happens when people go down due to loss of oxygen.
And now,
he said they should know by winter or by early 2021 if they have a safe and effective vaccine. And already, Jake, there are discussions among health officials about who would be the first to get it. First responders, possibly those over the age of 65, those in long-term care facilities. But obviously, first thing first, you have to get that effective vaccine. Jake?
That's right.
You have to get that effective vaccine.
That's right.
You know, is there something to worry about with medicines? That is, might some of them have side effects? Do we need safety testing? I mean, and we're taking things that are, you know, genetically modified organisms and we're injecting them in little kids' arms. We just shoot them right into the vein.
That's right. I guess it's notable that somebody telling the truth about this virus is newsworthy, but we did want to point that out.
So now we have a series of 2 comparison photographs under electron microscope of the virus and an exosome outside the cell and a virus and an MVE inside the cell. And you can see that they are identical in appearance. Now also the receptor, now this is a key thing. Now remember I mentioned that lock and key mechanism. Well, actually with the COVID-19 papers, they have discovered that on its surface, it has a receptor for ACE2. Now ACE2 is an angiotensin converting enzyme. It's an enzyme in our bodies. One of its functions is that it works with the kidney to regulate blood pressure, and there are blood pressure medications that inhibit this enzyme. But in this paper, what they said is that this receptor is actually how the virus invades the cells. Now, I also was able to find a paper where they've identified exosomes coming from our own body that also use the ACE2 receptor as their lock and key mechanism to find their target cells. So exosomes and COVID-19, the same exact receptor on their surface targeting the same exact cells. Now, these both contain genetic material, and it's both in the form of RNA. No DNA, only RNA. And these structures are both found in the lung fluid. So the lung cancer test that I showed you earlier found exosomes in that fluid, and the lung fluid showed the COVID-19 as well. So you can see that the more we take out this comparison forward, we see that they're essentially the same in every important way.
I guess it's notable that somebody telling the truth about this virus.
So this is Dr. James Hildreth, a very prominent researcher and academic physician in the field of virology and HIV research. He's currently the president and CEO of Meharry Medical College, but he was a full professor at Johns Hopkins, and he wrote this paper with 2 of his colleagues there. And what he said, and I quote, "The virus is fully an exosome in every sense of the word."
I guess it's notable that
it's like a nightmare coming true for me.
Now, interestingly, psychological stress, including fear, which many people around the world are experiencing in a very intense way right now, also causes release of exosomes. So you see how this may cause false positive tests.
Psychological impact of a virus.
I guess it's notable that...
Let me explain to you what happens when people go down due to loss of oxygen. They don't break their fall by putting a hand out like an average person does when they're headed south. What they do is they drop like a ton of bricks. Their skull hits first. A good case study is the elected Sacramento district attorney Her son pulled a low back muscle. She went to the doctor. They gave him a shot. He passed out and he dropped so hard, so fast, his skull hit the floor. I quote from the SAC-B, his head slammed full force onto the floor, which was like concrete, the DA said. For a moment, I thought he was dead. He wasn't dead. He had suffered a severe skull fracture, and that left him permanently deaf in one ear. At the time, my son never called me mommy, but when he came to, he was crying, "Mommy, mommy, I want to go home." We lost two people unconscious in the first 3 days. As the temperatures continue to go up, this is only going to increase. There is a simple solution.
Thank you. Your time is up.
A simple solution. We make the order optional, not mandatory, recommended, and then we don't have the liability.
Next speaker, please.
So we really need to start getting our heads around wearing masks, social distancing, and get with the program.
Because if we want to end this outbreak, really end it, and then hopefully when a vaccine comes and puts the nail in the coffin,
just shoot them right into the vein.
We've got to realize that we are part of the process.
I trusted the scientists back in 1976 with the original swine flu shot, and a lot of people got sick. Right. Not only that, some people died, some people were paralyzed. From the shot itself. And people remember the swine flu vaccine as a terrible disaster.
But this is one time. Forget the conspiracy. Listen to our government agencies. These guys are telling the truth. You know, there's no conspiracy here, folks. Just get your damn vaccine. Get your damn vaccine.
Just shoot them right into the vein.
And get with the program.
If there's one message that I want to leave with you today, based on my experience, and you'll see that in a moment, is that there is no question that there will be a challenge to the coming administration in the arena. There will be a challenge to the coming administration in the arena of infectious diseases, both chronic infectious diseases in the sense of already ongoing disease, and we have certainly a large burden of that. But also there will be a surprise outbreak. And I hope by the end of my relatively short presentation, you will understand why history, the history of the last 32 years that I've been the director of NIAID, will tell the next administration that there's no doubt in anyone's mind that they will be faced with the challenges.
And get with the program.
And herein lies the dilemma that we all face. Let me illustrate. Improved public health has caused the world's infant mortality rate to decline by 60% over the last 40 years. In the same period, the world's average life expectancy has increased from 46 years in 1950s to 63 years today. This is a development which, as individuals, we can only applaud. However, the result of these positive measures is a world population that has risen during the same short period of time geometrically to almost 6 billion people and could easily exceed 8 billion by the year 2020. The negative impact of population growth on all of our planetary ecosystems is becoming appallingly evident.
Now, the world today has 6.8 billion people. That's headed up to about 9 billion. Now, if we do a really great job on new vaccines, healthcare, reproductive health services, we could lower that by perhaps 10 or 15%. Now, if we do a really great job on new vaccines, we could lower that.
Once again, the United Nations should certainly be among the catalysts and coordinators of this process.
The virus is harvesting. What do you mean? 7 and 3 begin live for the lab of the first war with vaccines. Millions died in the first week of the pandemic dreams. We are the deep black death, smallpox, mutated disease. Flu shot propaganda from all population and troops. Avoid the plague. It might have slipped into the room. It's now we're born with 5 storms signal our doom. The dead returns with the pissed off zombie moves. The sprinkler system equipped with AUAG. Where they round up survivors in a cold facility. Watch the process of terror from the hill near the stream. I remain in the gas mask. I still filter my water clean. This isn't past tense on the plague of Athens. Couldn't be eradicated like smallpox in action. Avian influenza where the jet stream is how it happens. 2020 combined with coronavirus. Body stacking.
The world is now at the start of the influenza pandemic.
It started as writing. It was in the street outside. It was coming through windows.
Sequence the virus.
Not only that, some people died, some people were paralyzed. From the shot itself. And people remember the swine flu vaccine as a terrible disaster.
But this is one time. Forget the conspiracy. Listen to our government agencies. These guys are telling the truth. You know, there's no conspiracy here, folks. Just get your damn vaccine. Just get your damn vaccine.
And get with the program.
You literally cannot mandate somebody to wear a mask knowing that that mask is killing people. It literally is killing people. And we the people are waking up, and we know what citizen's arrest is, because citizen's arrests are already happening, okay? And every single one of you that are obeying the devil's laws are going to be arrested. And you, doctor, are going to be arrested for crimes against humanity. Every single one of you have a smirk behind that little mask, but every single one of you are going to get punished by God. You cannot escape God. You cannot escape God. I'm gonna say that again. You cannot escape God, not even with the mask or 6 feet. Okay? 6 feet, like I said before, is military protocol. You're trying to get the people, train them, so when the cameras, the 5G comes out, what? They're gonna scan everybody. We got to get scanned. We got to get temperatured. The kids have to go to school with masks. Are you insane? Are you crazy? I think all of you should be in a psych ward right the heck now, because none of you know what the hell you are all talking about. This is insane. And then you want to open this meeting with a prayer to God. Are you praying to the devil? Because God is not listening to that prayer, because all of you are practicing the devil's laws. What happened to Bill Gates? Why is he not in jail? Why is Hillary Clinton not in jail? Why are all of these pedophiles that are demanding you all to listen to their rules? Why are they not in jail? Oh, is it because you're part of them? Are you part of the deep state? Your time has expired. The deep state is going down. And if any of you are in the deep state, you're going down with it.
And get with the program.
All the world's a stage. And all the men and women merely players.
We have fabricated a worldwide flu scare. We are about to manufacture enough vaccine to inoculate the planet.
See, you've pulled the observations for Hong Kong flu. Hong Kong flu.
But because you have kept us waiting, we now have just under 3 months in which to do that. I thought Jeff announces V-Day at 9 p.m. It's a starting pistol. It's a big red button with go on it.
So all this time they had a real virus? Russian flu is real?
Yes, it's real. And they're going fat man on it.
So all this time they had a real virus?
Which is how they get a whole planet to take their vaccine.
If Philip made an adjustment to Janus, we must know. Today.
And if the results of the fake outbreak are modelled on the real thing, well, I think Spanish flu or worse.
And was that one bad, the Spanish one?
It killed 50 million people, Grant.
In about 90 days, that person will release the most deadly flu this world has ever seen. Everyone will take the vaccine.
So all this is sort of racist?
They have a virus. Russian flu.
No, they fake that.
No, they're not faking it this time. It's real.
No, they fake that.
No, they're not faking it this time. It's real. That's how they get everyone to take the vaccine.
And this is proof?
We think it shows what Carvel did to it, like the racist bit.
Everyone will willingly take Janus. We will have created utopia. It'll be chaos, it will, but in less than 100 years, there'll be no more than 500 million people on this planet.
And I want you to listen to what this gentleman says, and this will answer all your questions regarding the second wave.
What's wrong, Michael? You don't need a pandemic for people to take the vaccine. You just need the fear of a pandemic.
So there you heard it. We don't need a spam-demic. We just need the fear of a spam-demic to take the VC. So, many of you asked me, will the second wave be real? And I think this answers it. They want it to seem real so that people will run to get the VCs. They're definitely going to ramp up the misinformation out there. They're going to ramp that up so that you believe that, oh, this time it is real.
Seen record jumps in daily infections.
We have fabricated a worldwide flu scare.
I guess it got started by just people noticing when they were rewatching the Tangled movie, and especially with people having more time at home, I guess, with social distancing, that Tangled has a few interesting tidbits that they hadn't really noticed until this happened. Now, Tangled came out in 2010, and I remember that because my kids were huge fans of it and really loved it. So if you're watching the movie, you realize first and foremost that Tangled is set around Rapunzel, who is quarantined. Her fake mom, Mother Gothel, has kept her in a tower all her life because of the healing powers of her hair. But more importantly, they realized that she actually lived and was the princess of the kingdom of Corona. So more importantly, they were actually hiding her from Corona. Now, as we are in this time of coronavirus and it's been slowly creeping over the whole world, I guess now people are just now noticing that she was quarantining her, just like a lot of us are now, from Corona.
Oh, hay fever?
Yeah.
Huh?
Oh, the plane. No. Yes. You want to go outside? Oh, why, Rapunzel? Look at you, as fragile as a flower. Still a little sapling, just a sprout. You know why we stay up in this tower? I know, that's right, to keep you safe and sound. Yeah, it's a scary world out there.
We're on Tom Hanks's Instagram, and you may want to be sitting down and watching this video. You will not believe this one. So, of course, as some of you know, Tom Hanks contracted the so-called virus in Australia. All right, and apparently Tom Hanks is a lover of typewriters. You know, he's a typewriter aficionado, collector. So let's see what happened on this Instagram post here. Hey folks, good news. 1 week after testing positive in self-isolation, the symptoms are much the same. No fever, but the blahs. Folding the laundry and doing the dishes leads to a nap on the couch. Bad news, my wife, Rita Wilson, has won 6 straight hands of gin rummy and leads by 201 points. Leads by 201 points.
Now, this is where things get a little bit interesting here. You guys have heard of Event 201? Have you heard of this? Let me just give you a little synopsis. So in October of 2019, so this past October, the Johns Hopkins Center for Health and Security hosted a pandemic tabletop exercise called Event 201. And you can go to the site, you can read about it. With partners, and let's just hear who the partners are: the World Economic Forum, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, the CIA, the World Bank, the Chinese Center for Disease Control, and who are the other characters on this thing? Bloomberg as well. Bloomberg was in on this too. So this was you know, non-governmental agencies coming together to do a test. It's called Event 201. It was done in October of 2019. So for the scenario, this is them saying, for the scenario, quote, we modeled a fictional coronavirus pandemic, but we explicitly stated that it was not a prediction. Okay, so.
But I have learned not to spread my Vegemite so thick. I traveled here with a typewriter. He traveled there with one typewriter. Okay? And one I used to love. Used to love. You know why he's saying used to love? We'll get to that in a second. We're all in this together. Flatten the curve, of course. So, can you guess which typewriter brand he so happened to travel with and had with him as he contracted this deadly virus? You guessed it. Corona. Yeah, the Corona typewriter, folks. And for those of you unaware of the significance of the 201 reference, just a friendly reminder, and for those people out there, and there are many, who are questioning this, looking into this, skeptical about this situation, pointing out all of the suspicious coincidences, quote unquote, online since this so-called outbreak began, these people are aware of something called Event 201, which is a little mock simulation exercise that they carried out less than 2 months before this so-called outbreak that's playing out exactly in the real world right now as if it was some sort of script.
The Chinese government was the first to know of this risk to the world, and that puts a special obligation to make sure that data gets to our scientists, our professionals. This is not about retribution. This matters going forward. We're in a live exercise here. To get this right. We
Sadly, 2020 has already proven to be a year in which we've lost some big names, even in just a few short months.
Technically, even if you died of a clear alternate cause, but you had COVID at the same time, it's still listed as a COVID death. So,
from founding fathers of comedy and veteran character actors to up-and-coming stars that never got a chance to shine, here are the actors we've lost in 2020 so far.
Everyone who's listed as a COVID death doesn't mean that that was the cause of the death, but they had COVID at the time of death. I hope that's helpful.
Here are the actors we.
If I wanted a death certificate saying that I had been born, lived, died, was autopsied, and buried in the Philippines, I could have that for myself in 48 hours.
The main ingredient that's needed is a corrupt doctor that will certify the death. The doctor will provide a statement of death to the family member. With that statement or that certification of death, the family can go to the civil registry in any country and obtain an official certified death certificate. That's a legal government document.
You never say, I trust the documents when you do this type of investigation. I have in my office hundreds of fake death certificates, hundreds of fake coroner's reports, coroners that have been paid off, coroners that have been threatened, coroners that have been seduced.
In all the years that I've investigated these cases, I've seen just about everything imaginable. We have worked cases where in some countries they actually sell like an official death kit where you can go buy the official death certificate, you can buy video of the funeral with an open casket.
I speak to everybody I possibly can about the insured, the dead person, and the beneficiary.
Here are the actors we've.
You're lying to us, spreading fear, telling us that this man died, and he's just been down there and saw that he is not dead. He has just been taken to the hospital by the police. He spoke to both the police and the homeless man. That man was a bit drunk. He asked him if he was okay, and he was fine. This was 5 to 10 minutes ago.
We're in a live exercise here.
Eerie. And let's not forget the 1996 film Space Jam predicting an NBA shutdown.
Quiet! Listen, after meeting with team owners, I have decided that until we can guarantee the health and safety of our NBA players, there will be no more basketball this season.
On on Wednesday, the NBA announced a suspension of the NBA season after Utah player Rudy Gobert tested positive for the infectious disease.
20 combined with coronavirus, body stacking. 20 combined with coronavirus, body stacking. 20 combined with coronavirus, body stacking. 20 combined with coronavirus, body stacking.
The lie. Everything he was telling me was different from what we were being told was the truth. And at one point I asked him, I said, man, you guys, you lied about a lot, didn't you? And instantly he said, no, we didn't lie about certain things. We lied about everything.
Do you agree with Donald Trump's chief of staff, Mulvaney, that the coronavirus is the hoax of the day?
The State Department is doing everything it can to protect American citizens around the world.
Do you believe coronavirus is the hoax of the day?
I'm not going to comment on what others say.
I'm just asking you, do you believe the coronavirus is a hoax?
I'm just telling you what the Secretary of State's doing.
Do you believe the coronavirus is a hoax?
We're working to keep people safe.
You can't even answer that question?
Yeah.
It's it's not even a gotcha question. You believe the coronavirus is a hoax?
It's a gotcha moment.
We're in a live exercise here.
It's a gotcha moment. It's not useful.
Is the coronavirus a hoax? Can you just answer that question?
We're taking it seriously. This is
Are you
serious.
At 12:15 today? Are you in fact yourself speaking at CPAC? At 12:15 today, are you speaking?
Yes, I am. I'm planning.
All right. So you can only give 2 hours to this bipartisan group of members of Congress, and instead of answering questions on life and death issues from a bipartisan group of America's representatives, you're going to go talk to a special interest group.
Yes.
You, sir, represent all Americans, not a special interest group. It is shameful. You can't even answer basic questions. I yield back.
We have fabricated a worldwide flu scare. We are about to manufacture enough vaccine to inoculate the planet.
You don't need a pandemic for people to take the vaccine. You just need the fear of a pandemic.
You know, is there something to worry about with medicines? That is, might some of them have side effects? Do we need safety testing? I mean, and we're taking things that are, you know, genetically modified organisms and we're injecting them in little kids' arms. We just shoot them right into the vein.
All right, guys, and here's what I wanted to show you. Implantable digital ID vaccination system in development. Would you agree to have a microchip implanted into your body? That's the question. The Microsoft, and look, Microsoft, like I told you, it's Bill Gates, and a group of pharmaceutical companies are asking. Microsoft is spearheading an initiative called ID 2020, a program aimed at giving every human on the planet a digital ID like a fingerprint in order to keep everyone connected. Well, how would they give all of us this ID 2020? Oh, wait. Forced vaccination, guys. Come on. What is ID 2020? The ID 2020 Alliance is an initiative held by Bill Gates and aimed at getting digital IDs right. According to the official ID 2020 site, current methods of official identification are archaic and not accessible by everyone. As the Alliance claims, current methods of digital identification are easy to spoof, and proper ID clarification hasn't become a reality just yet. As companies are now defining what is proper official online ID looks like, ID 2020 seeks to help define what a good digital ID is. Gates and the board of the Alliance have a certification mark that they award companies and technologies to meet the criteria of being good digital ID tech. And I can guarantee you those good companies, guys, are going to be all of the elite, and they are here to go ahead and bring in a new world order.
Around the world, the most successful effort has been in South Korea. And I think the reason they worked, and I've done a fair amount of research in this, is they basically created a digital vaccine. Everyone got tested. Your information was entered into a government-run app. That tool was used to track where you were going, what you were doing, to help you make sure you're being smart about your social distancing, to quarantine you if you're infected. They track people you've been near to so they can get it tested ahead of time so you can contain the virus.
What the actual fuck did you just say to me right now?
And I think the reason they worked, and I've done a fair amount of research in this, is they basically created a digital vaccine. Everyone got tested. Your information was entered into a government-run app.
Do not consent to the wars you use to kill the poor. We do not consent to your taxes and mandatory vaccines. We do not consent.
consent. Cause it's your nose that you grow. We do not consent. Geoengineering. We don't consent to the floor and the water supply, blinding our third eye and keeping us compliant. We don't consent to the wars you wage every day, bombing innocent children hundreds of miles away. We don't consent to you hiding our true history, or your secret society keeping it a mystery. Cause you've been lying to all of us for centuries. Now it's time we break through your green screen reality. There won't be a rock and turn for y'all behind it. You're prepared for the upcoming uprising, and no denying that you've ruled for too long. And we're chipping away at your armor with each song. We use the truth to put an end to the abuse. Once you see what's to come, I wouldn't want to be in your shoes. We think we're just lambs lining up for the slaughter, but we're here to make your new world have no order. We do not consent to the wars you use to kill the poor. We do not consent. We do not consent. Cause it's your nose that you grow. We do not consent. Geoengineering. We don't consent to the chemicals you're spraying above us, and we don't consent to the criminals you're paying to run us. We don't consent to your false flag attacks and shooting hoaxes. We're standing up now and letting you know we're truly focused. We don't consent to your central bank or your corporations. We practice discipline, citizen, and subordination. We don't consent to the 1% having everything. We don't consent to be puppets. We're cutting every string. I know one thing for certain, they won't control me. You had to have heard the name by now, they call me OD. I don't consent to the media telling lies to me. I don't consent to them engineering society. It's time to take over this shit, so now we're locked and loaded, ready for anything that happens at any moment. We're wide awake, there's no way that we'll ever go back. Never sleep again, and we wanted to let you know that we do not consent to the wars you use to kill the poor. We do not consent to the military vaccine. We do not consent. Cause it's your nose that you grow. We do not consent. Geoengineering. We do not consent to the wars you use to kill the poor. We do not consent. Your taxes, a mandatory vaccine, mandatory vaccine, mandatory vaccine.
Not only that, some people died, some people were paralyzed.
From the shot itself.
And people remember the swine flu vaccine as a terrible disaster.
But this is one time. Forget the conspiracy. Listen to our government agencies. These guys are telling the truth. You know, there's no conspiracy here, folks. Just get your damn vaccine. Just get your damn vaccine.
And get with the program.
Nearly 500 people were recently exposed to a COVID-positive asymptomatic carrier. 0 got sick.
So what's all this contagious bullcrap about virus?
There will be the ability, particularly in rich countries, to open up if things are done well over the next few months. But for the world at large, normalcy only returns when we've largely vaccinated the entire global population.
Alexander Chess Music.
We didn't go there.
How'd you your beats today?
Well, if it ain't my bestest friend on God's flat earth. God's flat earth.
Oh, beats.
Are you fucking kidding me? Oh, there's no way out of here! Come on!
We're taking things that are genetically modified organisms and we're injecting them in little kids' arms. We just shoot them right into the vein.
Motherfucker, we're living in the New World Order right now.
Beats on the track.
Do you want to know what it is? The Matrix is everywhere. It is all around us. Even now, in this very room.
Alexander Chess Music.
are going to get punished by God. You cannot escape God. You cannot escape God. I'm gonna say that again. You cannot escape God, not even with the mask or 6 feet, okay?
Boom, boom,
He's a shady gangster. That's how I perceive the government to be. So.
And we know what citizens arrest is, because citizens arrests are already happening, okay? And every single one of you that are obeying the devil's laws are going to be arrested. And you, doctor, are going to be arrested for crimes against humanity.
Legend.
We, we'll have to prepare for the next one. That, I'd say is will get attention this time.
This world is not what you think it is. This world is not what you think it is.